Are you secretly sabotaging your own happiness without even knowing it? I'm kind of guilty of that, and I discovered basically 3 habits that you need to change immediately if you want to stop sabotaging your own happiness. And I would say the last point is actually the easiest to implement, and it has the biggest impact. So stay tuned until the end, because that's gonna be life-changing. I promise you that. The first habit that you immediately need to change, and I think it's a very common one, is negative self-talk. I never understood why we're being so mean to ourselves. Like, how can you be happy if you're not your own best friend? And even worse, like, keep all those doubts inside of us and being too scared to share them with the outside world. I think if you have something to hide, immediately it's close to impossible to feeling happy. And this negative self-talk, I had to change it. I think I discovered some tips that are helpful. Today I want to share them with you. So basically, first things first, you need to catch yourself in the moment. When those situations happen, basically just like pulling a curtain, like revealing it. And this usually stops this kind of and makes it better in the long run. So that's something that you would need to do once you discover those situations when you're being mean to yourself. Second point that you need to do is basically confirm it. Like, is it really true what's going on? Is it really true what's happening? And in most cases, it's just basically not true. If you say, I'm stupid, I'm too nervous, I'm not good enough, most likely you are good enough and you're not stupid and you can do that. But you need to challenge those thoughts because they feel real, but most of the times they're just not real. In the end, you would need to change them, reformulate them. Instead of saying, I'm nervous, I'm stupid, you need to say, like, I'm not prepared enough, but I made progress. And I think this reformulating those thoughts like kind of removes the power from them. And I think if you change this negative self-talk, chances are you're gonna be happier at least. But I would say you still need tip number 2, which is called perfectionism. That's something I struggle with a lot. I want to do things perfect or don't do them at all. And I think that's a problem, because how can you be happy in the end if you try something and while it might not be perfect, it might still be amazing, you basically torture yourself because you didn't reach this last 1% that's not perfect enough. And I think it's very unhealthy if you don't celebrate your wins, doesn't matter how small they are in the end. And therefore, we need to be aware that perfectionism actually doesn't even exist at all. And this concept is hurting you more than you know it. And in the end, usually there's even a fear behind it, that like the judgment of other people. And in the end, you shouldn't care what other people think about you, your life, your efforts, because it just matters that you do the things you want to do, that you're being kind to yourself and you're trying. And now the most important tip, the one we all waited for, I think really it has the biggest impact on happiness. You need to really execute this if you want to be happy in life. You need to stop this constant complaining. This is also just a negative vibe and prevents you from being happy. But the most important thing, and I think that's easier, because the first 2 points, you basically had to deal with yourself, with your inner demons. And I would say changing your own habits and behaviors is one of the most important things you can do. But it's also one of the hardest things that you can do. So instead, I would say focus rather on external things, like trying to cut negative people out of your life. I think we've all have some friends, some colleagues at work, for example. All they do is complain. They have nothing better to do than to complain. And in the end, the whole vibe of the situation is negative. Everybody feels awful. Everything seems impossible. Everything is shitty. Nothing will change. And if I can give you just one tip from the whole video, and this is basically cut those people out of your life. It's so easy to do that and will have the biggest impact, and would give you enough freedom to really work on your habits, on your life. But first you need to cut off those external factors. And I know it can be tricky, I know it can be hard, especially at work, or it might even be a relationship, but you really need to cut those people out of your life. Otherwise, I think it's close to impossible to be happy. And I know most of you now have the fear of what happens if I cut those people actually out of my life. I think then I might be lonely. If you're struggling with loneliness, there's another video that I'm gonna link right here that will help you if you feel isolated and struggle with being alone. But that's, I would say, even a bonus tip. If you somehow make it in life and you know how to be happy while being alone, then you basically won. And that's the most important thing in life. One of the most important tips I can give you.